Rishabh, who's keeping a close eye on the events there. Rishabh, tell us about what's being discussed among all the heads of state who have assembled at BRICS, including the intervention by the Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Modi.
Well, let's start from the intervention by the Indian Prime Minister. First, Indian Prime Minister very categorically in the closed plenary session emphasized on the terrorism and the terror financing, and he goes on to say that we all have to come together to crush the terror menace in the area. Any country cannot develop until unless it is reeling under the issue of terrorism, and there cannot be double standards on terrorism. All of us have to come together to crush terrorism. In a way, very clear message even to China. And Chinese president was sitting in the session. Both the leaders would be meeting for a bilateral meeting as well in an hour from now or so. And what we are given to understand that meeting is also very crucial. But at the close plenary session, we heard the host as well. President Putin talks about unilateral sanctions, about various issues, including Russia-Ukraine war, food supply, food security, free trade, free movement in Indo-Pacific. Everything has been discussed. And after that, when India started the address, apart from focusing on trade and trade routes, India do talk about terrorism, terror financing, radicalization, as well as territorial integrity and sovereignty. So very clearly, while India talks about diplomacy, dialogue, anti-terror, but also do not forget to put in the words like territorial integrity, ensuring that India do understand the multilateralism, but the national interest stands first.
But Rishabh, there was another very important message that was sent out by Prime Minister Narendra Modi during his intervention at the BRICS Summit. And I'm just reading out what he said. He says, "Hum yudh nahi, dialogue or diplomacy ka samarthan karte hain." So a strong message being sent out at a time when Russia is, of course, engulfed in a conflict with Ukraine, and there's a war raging in the Middle East as well.
Well, definitely, West Asia is reeling under the crisis. The Iran-Israel crisis is something that everyone is looking at. The West Asian region is at the brink of a regional war. We have seen how things are unfolding in Lebanon, in Gaza, in Israel itself, and how Iran and Yemen is also trying to get into that crisis. And if that happens, a regional war is not far from being discussed. But in mid of that, on the table when you have Iran sitting, on the table when you have Russia sitting, and in audience you will have Palestinian president as well sitting, Mahmoud Abbas, Prime Minister talking about peace, diplomacy, dialogue. India's consistent stand that India is of the opinion that dialogue and diplomacy can change things. No solution can be found on the battlefield, and that's what Prime Minister reiterated at his BRICS address as well when he spoke earlier today at the closed session in the plenary session.
And Rishabh, because in New York, when the Prime Minister was there for the UNGA, he subsequently spoke at the Summit of the Future as well. One important point that he highlighted there was, of course, the use and abuse of artificial intelligence and how that has implications for issues such as sovereignty, integrity, as well as national security. That was another claim that he reiterated now during his brief intervention at the BRICS Summit as well.
Well, definitely, artificial intelligence is something that India do realize that in future it will create a lot of issues, and we have seen artificial intelligence actually at a smaller level being used to tarnish things on social media already, and India do understand the misuse of artificial intelligence and how, if used in a wrong manner, if used with an ill intention, how brutal this could be, and that's the reason that India at various forums, it's not only at BRICS or UNGA Future Summit, but also at G20. If you remember last year, there was a whole long para on artificial intelligence in the New Delhi Declaration as well. That showcases that India is serious about AI. India do understand that AI is important for the future, but India do also understand that misuse of AI could be a problem that needs to be taken care of from the word go.
Rishabh, we're of course speaking about 55 minutes before The bilateral between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Xi Jinping is expected to commence. What's on the table as far as discussions are concerned? What can we expect in a possible joint statement that might be released once that bilateral concludes? Give our viewers a perspective on what we can expect basically as key takeaways from that interaction that Prime Minister Narendra Modi will soon have with Xi Jinping.
Well, if we talk about India-China, what the sources suggest, bilaterals at a leadership level is something that very few will preempt and very few will even talk about. But what the broader issues that India and China will discuss, India will emphasize on disengagement and confidence-building measures. Remember, in last 4 years, there have been standoff, and the way India has put forward its troops, the Indian Army, the Indian Navy, Indian Air Force, the way they have been put forward, including Indian Navy's SEALs have been put forward, the way China has mobilized its troops on the borders, that is something that will be discussed. The disengagement is something that both the countries believe is in mutual interest of both the countries. Also, given the winters will come in, and the winters in that region, the eastern Ladakh region, is really brutal. The soldiers die of the weather condition more than the combat, and that is something that both the countries understand. So disengagement is something that both the leaders are expected to discuss. India is all set to propose mechanisms for CBM. When I say CBM, it's confidence building measures that India would put forward. Regional issues like Myanmar and Bangladesh is also expected to be discussed on the table, given that it affects both India and China. Apart from that, connectivity. Remember, the connectivity between India and China has been stopped for quite some time. Now, there have been a lot of talks from the Chinese side already about direct flights between New Delhi and Beijing. That is something that could be discussed, is what we are given to understand. So connectivity, confidence building measures, regional issues, and obviously the biggest friction point, the peaceful resolution of friction points along the line of actual control, is something that could come up in the meeting when Prime Minister Narendra Modi sits with President Xi Jinping later in the day. And as we say, what the sources suggest, that the things are moving 30-35 minutes behind schedule.
Okay, Rishabh, I just need to interrupt you there for a moment. Stay with us, because President Putin has completed his speech at BRICS, and now Xi Jinping, the president of China, is speaking.
We should build a BRICS committed to innovation, and we must all act as pioneers of high-quality development. As the latest round of technological revolution and industrial transformation is advancing at an accelerated speed, we must keep pace with the times and foster new quality productive forces. China has recently launched a China BRICS Artificial Intelligence Development and Cooperation Center. We are ready to deepen cooperation on innovation with all BRICS countries to unleash the dividends of AI development. China will establish a BRICS Deep Sea Resources International Research Center